Imagine you were celebrating your birthday with your two besties when a guy comes over and buys your two friends drinks while completely ignoring you. Well, welcome to my life. But it wasn't always like that. For most of my life, I was the prettiest of my friends. So whenever a handsome guy came over to approach us, I automatically assumed he was only interested in me, not my two ugly friends. Hey, are you girls going to see the Batman movie too? My friend Alma responded, yes, we do. What's your name? That's when I leaned over to her and whispered, sorry, Alma, but I don't think he wants to talk to you. Let me handle this. Hey, my name is Jessica. What row are you sitting in? I ended up switching seats so I could sit next to the guy, and we ended up kissing a bit. I guess sometimes I'm just a little... After the movie was over, I went back to my friends, and they were so jealous. I can't believe he chose you over us. Didn't he see my ass? Alma was correct. They both had better curves than me, but it didn't matter because their faces were far below average. They were ugly. I said, girls, I warn you. If either of you two ever gets married to a handsome guy, be careful he won't fall in love with me and break up with you. I'm just too irresistible. You probably think I was a jerk for teasing my friends so much, but it was all in good spirit because we were besties. And as a girl, it's important to practice how to flirt with guys, especially if you're still in school. Because no matter the subject, as long as my teacher was male, I could walk up to him after class and ask him to improve my final grade. I would come up with some excuse and say, I didn't get a good sleep the night before the exam because my parents screamed at each other all night. Can you please upgrade my grade? Then I would start crying. I didn't just make my teacher feel pity for me, but I also made him feel powerful.
Grocery.
Because he was the
Restock.
only one who could rescue this pretty little girl. Okay. I know that you can do better, so I will bump up your grade and let you pass the year. Oh my god, thank you!
The best coffee
You are the
creamer.
best. Yes, I was shameless. It's probably not normal to hug your 50-year-old physics teacher. But what was the downside? I always made sure no other students were in the room. That's why my teachers felt comfortable flirting with me a bit, and none of my classmates could joke around that I was having an affair with our teachers or something
My
like that.
favorite pre-workout
Here
snack.
comes the plot twist. My two best friends, at the age of 17, got their parents' permission to get plastic surgery.
He
Shockingly,
loves
there is no
Cheez-Its.
minimum age required for it here in the U.S. All you need is your parents' approval. And we are talking breast enhancements, Brazilian butt lifts, fake chins, and everything else in between. I could barely recognize them when they came back to school. Suddenly, I was the least good-looking of my friends, and I absolutely hated it. One time, a classmate asked us how we were, and I responded, I'm good. Oh, I wasn't asking you. I was talking to your friends. Huh? Why was this guy so rude to me? Well, Alma thought it was funny, and no wonder. I had teased her for years about being less pretty than me. Now the tables had turned, and she enjoyed her victory. Alma became the most popular girl in our school, not because she had great character, but because her parents had paid doctors to stuff a bunch of plastic into her body. I was disgusted, or maybe I was just envious. But isn't it unfair how many advantages rich people have? When Alma and I went to the cinema again, I told the cashier that I would take the small, salty popcorn. He didn't acknowledge my request at all. Instead, he smiled at Alma, who was behind me in line, and asked her what she wanted. Oh, thank you for letting me go first in line. I feel so special now. Then she flirted with the guy for 2 long minutes. Finally, I had enough and screamed at her, screw you and your fake plastic body! I stormed out of the cinema, and only once my anger had faded, I came to my senses. I had bullied Alma about her ugly face for so long, and now I couldn't handle her being prettier than me for a few weeks. I was a complete hypocrite and wrote her an apology text. To my relief, she said she wasn't mad at me, but it got worse. While my boyfriend Seth, Alma, and I ate lunch in the schoolyard, Alma made a really unfunny joke. She said, what's brown and made out of wood? She paused for a second and said, wood. It was such a bad joke, but my boyfriend Seth couldn't stop laughing, and that was no coincidence. Before Alma had gotten all her plastic surgery, my boyfriend had always disliked her. One time, he even called her an idiot. But now that she was hot and pretty, he loved talking to her. So much so, he was the third wheel when we were together. It hurt being ignored. Finally, Alma went away, and I told Seth, if you love her so much, why don't you just try to kiss her next time? Oh god, are you jealous again? Just because I talked to your best friend? Seth never admitted to doing anything wrong, and worse, he judged me for being jealous. get jealous if my own boyfriend likes another girl more than me. Well, it only took another week before he broke up with me. He said I was too clingy and he didn't have time for a girlfriend due to the upcoming final exams. The breakup really hurt, and to make things worse, just 1 month later, Alma came up to me and asked if it was fine if she started dating my ex-boyfriend Seth. Out of the hundreds of guys in our school, you chose my ex? He hit me up on Instagram, and then we watched a movie together at his home. You did what? I got so mad I was about to rip out her dumb chin implants from under her skin. If you start dating Seth, I'm gonna kill both of you. I promise you that. Yeah, I was losing my shit. But it's no wonder. Within 2 months, I'd lost my whole identity. If I wasn't one of the pretty girls anymore, then who really was I? And anyway, wasn't it kind of sad that guys only wanted to date me because of my looks? Didn't I have any other redeeming qualities that could have made Seth want to stay in a relationship with me? I thought for a moment, but couldn't think of any positive character traits I possessed. Maybe it was true. Maybe I was nothing but a mean bitch. Well, the next day in class, I tried to be kinder and asked one of my classmates how her day was. She immediately started talking about her alcoholic dad and how he was super abusive. She kept talking on and on. That's when I realized that I wasn't one of the nice girls. I wasn't interested in her or her alcoholic dad, or really anyone other than myself. I told her, "Shut up, you talked enough." Because otherwise she would have talked about her shitty family until sunset. I now knew who I was. A selfish and narcissistic little brat. I wasn't going to become Mother Teresa or Gandhi. No, I had to do something else, and guess what I Googled next? Cost breast augmentation, Los Angeles. Actually, the prices were lower than I had expected, only $5,000. But unfortunately, my parents were too poor to afford that. But then I had a realization. Upgrading my body wasn't really an expense, but rather an investment. If my hot body could get me a husband with a high salary one day, then it would easily pay for the plastic surgery bills. That's why I walked into a bank and asked for a $25,000 loan. What's your age and what will you spend the money on? College? I'm 16 years old and I want to get plastic surgery. That day, I learned that banks don't give out loans to desperate teenage girls in need of a breast augmentation. But I'm smart. I just faked some documents to make it look that I had already graduated high school. I pretended to be a prodigy who had jumped 2 classes and now wanted to go to Harvard. I guess it's shocking how quickly they gave me a loan. And because Harvard is expensive, I got $60,000, which covered the cost of surgery for my whole body. However, because it took several weeks for my body to recover, I missed my final exams in high school. That's why my principal wanted me to repeat the whole year. Who did he think he was? I am a straight 10 now. I can get whatever guy I want, which means I don't need to get a degree or find a good job. So I just dropped out of high school. Most people watching this video probably hate me because I'm telling things as they are. But when you're as hot as me, you don't care about the opinions of some haters on the internet. What matters is that guys love me. And even my ex-boyfriend Seth hit me up again on Instagram. He said he made a huge mistake with breaking up with me. Too bad. I'm so out of his league now. Thank you for watching Share My Story. And if you like our animated stories, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, and today for My Story Animated, I'm going to tell you how I inherited my kidnapper's fortune. Yeah, that's right. Weird, huh? But for that, I have to tell you a few things first, so stick around and subscribe to this channel. So, I was born in a small town, but the quiet life didn't last long. My father was a diplomat, so I spent most of my life traveling around the world. Moving from place to place every couple of months is not as awesome as it may sound. I had no place to call home, no friends, and no close family other than my parents. Since we moved around so much, I never spent more than 2 months in a school. My parents decided it was best that I did homeschooling. Great. That was a dead end in my social life chances. When I turned 15, my dad passed away. Things could not get any worse. My mom decided that we would move back to the small town I was born in. For the first time in my life, I would go to school for a whole year. But remember how I told you I had no friends and no social life? Well, imagine how anxious I was to think about school. Just to imagine all those kids inside one classroom made me shiver. And to make things worse, I learned in the hardest way possible how dangerous it is to would be beautiful. Yeah, I was beautiful, apparently. At least that's what everyone in school thought the moment I stepped in. I've never given much thought about that because I spent my days at home seeing only teachers through a screen. I knew nothing about fashion or trends. The day before school, I thought that everyone would look at me like a weirdo. I was shy and panicked at the idea of talking to anyone. My plan was to stay low, learn my lessons, and rush home. But seemingly, my beauty stood out from the start, and I didn't have to start any conversation. Everyone was talking to me at the same time, asking a million questions. I learned the very first day that when you're pretty, everything you say and do is cool. So when I talked about my past, everyone was amazed. Traveling around the world was cool. Homeschooling was awesome. And having no friends at all was reason enough for everyone to be eager to change that for me. No matter how many times I explained that my past wasn't as fantastic as it seemed, they just heard what they wanted and asked me more frantic questions. And then the world suddenly stopped, as if someone just pushed the pause button of my life. The hottest guy I've ever seen had just arrived at school. And trust me, when you travel around the world as much as I did, you see a lot of different people. This guy was just plain perfect. I couldn't believe my eyes, and I couldn't believe that he lived in a small town like that. His name was Janus, and all I could think of was that, of course, he would be named after a Greek god. He smiled at me, and all I could do was stare at him like an idiot. Was I drooling? I hope not. And then reality punched me in the face. A gorgeous girl appeared from behind and strategically put her hand on Janus's shoulder. Together, they looked like a couple recently descended from Olympus. The girl's name was Martha, a name I would sadly remember forever. Martha was the most popular girl in school, and it suddenly felt obvious that she would be Janus's girlfriend. She was used to things working the way she wanted, and she was not happy with me. I saw in the first look she gave me that she saw me as a threat. She marked her territory quickly, and when Janus introduced me to her, she scanned me from head to toe, and the first words I ever heard coming from her mouth were, "So sad you had no time to buy new clothes." Silence took over the entire hall.
Okay guys, so I have this empty space on my counter right here because I finally found a cute rice dispenser. Of course, I washed and air dried everything.
A dictator would be an understatement.
This is supposed to be the little like candle lover thing,
more
and I
interest
think
in me than
I'm supposed to
Martha
put it
wanted.
in here.
At first, I tried to ignore him, but when lunchtime came and he asked me if I wanted to sit with them, I couldn't say no.
We have a 15-pound bag of rice.
Asking me to go to the party he was having that night at his place. How could I resist a Greek god? He was so painfully handsome that my will around him disappeared.
15-pound rice bag, but I didn't want to
Martha
fill it
was
all the way to the top
obviously
because
not
I still need
happy
to
with
put
the idea
lid
of
on.
me in Janus's home. But to tell you the truth, I liked
I
the
kind of
idea
ran
of
into a
being
problem.
seen
If I
and
put this
appreciated
lid
for the
on
first time
now,
in
it's
my
gonna
life.
like
And
interfere
to
with
be
the cabinet.
completely honest,
But I think I found a
wasn't
solution.
that much
because if
afraid
you
of
look
Martha.
under my cabinet,
If
there's
Janus
this
wanted to
weird,
hang out with me,
empty,
it was his
scary
choice.
space.
So to make her
So I
swallow
scoot this
those
back all
hurtful
the way
words
into
she
the
spit
corner,
out to
and
me
then I'm
at
gonna go
school,
ahead and
I
put the
decided
lid
to
on.
wear one of the most gorgeous and extravagant
Lastly is
dresses
this
I
measuring
own.
cup.
You see, as a
I think
diplomat,
this is so
my
cute.
dad
It's way
used to
cuter than the
attend
ones we
over-the-top
had growing
events
up.
around
Okay,
the
let's
world,
test
and
it
many
out.
of those times he would have to take his family with him. So I owned a number of dresses that my mom bought me from different places all over the world.
Time to
Some of them
restock
were
the
even
beverage
made
fridge.
exclusively for
Family
me by
coming in
renowned
from Tennessee,
designers.
and we're
I
doing
was
a
young
beach
and
day
never
at our
paid much
lagoon on
attention to them,
Friday.
but
So I
now
wanted to
the
make
efforts
sure our
of my
beverage fridge was
sacrificed
stocked
life
and
would
ready to
pay
go.
off. Step aside, Martha. I'm coming in. I tell you, you should have seen her face when she saw me. Everyone stood silent but her. Oh man, her expression was priceless. Who's the goddess now, Viper? But Martha was not stupid. She was the leader of the school mob, and no stupid person in history was ever a leader of anything. She realized immediately that I was not planning to stay low, and so she went for another strategy. To befriend me, of course. She smiled widely at me and praised my dress. She even said I looked beautiful in it. I didn't really have a problem with her sudden change in attitude. I preferred her as an ally instead of an enemy. But you know that saying that goes, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Well, I didn't, and I found out too late that it was exactly what Martha was planning to do. I was the daughter of a diplomat, but I sucked at it. I should have known better. My father died too soon. He had no time to teach me the tools I would need to play Martha's game. So when she grabbed me by the arm and stood by my side the whole time laughing and gossiping about guys in school, I didn't know what she was up to. For the first time in my entire night, we were close enough so I could smell his cologne. Dang, it made me dizzy.
I was looking for you, he said.
My knees were shaking. I was about to faint. I knew it. Get it together, Jennifer. What an amazing collection, I said, changing the subject. What a chicken. Janice got even closer to me. He pulled some hair out of my face and behind my ear. Dance with me, he said. And he didn't give me the chance to refuse, like I would have anyway. He put his arm around my waist and we started dancing. The music sounded far away, coming from the garden, but it was enough to set the rhythm. I was flying. Then he looked at me and smiled. We were inches apart. He was about to kiss me when I heard Martha's voice. "Jen!" she shouted. Yeah, I was Jen now. Janice pushed me away gently but nervously. He blinked a couple of times, then rushed to the door. Before he opened it, he glanced at me once more, seriously. "Hello, beautiful," I heard him say from the other side of the door. Was I imagining things, or was his voice trembling? What was going on? "Have you seen Jen?" I heard. It was Martha's voice. "No, I haven't," he lied. I waited a couple of minutes and then got out. I went back out and straight towards Martha's side. Something really weird was happening, and I didn't want to look suspicious. From the corner of my eye, I saw Janice back with his friends. He winked at me, and I smiled back. Dang, he was gorgeous. But was I doing the right thing? I mean, Martha's arm was around mine, and I was flirting with her boyfriend. And what about him? Why was he doing that? And why did he lie to Martha to cover me up? Too many questions I had no answer for. When I arrived at school the next day, Martha and Janice were already there, hanging out with the rest of the elite. Martha called my name, and they opened a spot for me.
I can do that
better. The guys were talking about an upcoming
like
football game. Martha had her arm on Janice's shoulder as always. Janice was an active participant in the conversation, but he glanced at me from time to time. I felt my cheeks getting red. I hoped Martha didn't notice. The bell rang, thank God, and we all started to walk to class. Janice was walking next to me, and I felt his hand caressing mine. I looked at him, but he looked forward. I looked at Martha, and she was distracted talking with another girl. So I touched Janice's hand too. We continued like that until we reached the classroom, and then he went to sit with his friends. My seat was in the first row next to Martha, so I didn't dare turn around and look at him. The class went on forever. I was glad to realize that I already knew that biology lesson from my homeschooling days because I could not pay attention. Janice was all over my mind. Weeks passed, and since Janice was Martha's boyfriend and Martha was determined to hover over me all day long, we spent a lot of time together. Not just us, but the entire group. We shared classes, break times, lunch, after-school activities. On one hand, it was great to finally experience what a social life meant. On the other, I was going crazy. I couldn't understand Janice. He was obviously interested in me. Why didn't he dump Martha? She wasn't as interested in him as me. She was obviously dating him because he was the most gorgeous guy in school. So one day, I got fed up, and as I was entering school, I decided to face him and ask him what the hell was going on. To my surprise and benefit, Martha got sick and didn't go to school that day. That would make it easier for me to find a moment alone with Janice. After lunch, I told him I had to talk to him and asked him to meet me at the backstage of the school theater. I was already sweating when I saw him walking slowly towards me through the aisle between the chairs. He never took his eyes from me, and as he climbed the stairs, without saying a word, he took my face in his hands and kissed me. Finally! I've been waiting for this moment forever. I couldn't believe it was happening. I didn't tell you this, but I'd never kissed a guy before. Imagine having that first experience with a Greek god. I don't have words to express what it meant, what I felt. Even though everything in my life collapsed after that magic moment, I would live it again over and over. Well, I wouldn't want to ruin this moment for you either, but that's what happened. Martha was not really ill. She was faking it so she could finally catch us red-handed. Martha, as the dictator she was, had spies all over the school. So I'm guessing that when I got inside the theater and Janice entered just minutes after, someone must have texted her. She rushed to school and got inside the theater with a few of Janice's friends. They all stared at us in silence. "You're going to pay for this," Martha said with a calmness that made me shiver, as if she'd been waiting for this to happen and had everything planned. And then I heard the most hurtful words of my life. "Well done, Janice," she said, smiling now. I looked at him, puzzled, my heart instantly crushed. He looked at her and then at me, cold as ice, not the way he'd been looking at me these past weeks. "Janice?" I asked. But he swallowed in silence and looked at the floor. "Let's go," Martha said, and they all followed, Janice included. I was left alone in the theater, and I felt as sad and confused as the day my father died. I felt the tears coming down my cheeks, and I couldn't find the will to move. I wanted to disappear from the world and never come back. The following days were really strange. There was a general calmness in the air that looked very much like the silence before a storm. Martha ignored me, and so did everyone else. And to make things worse, I was becoming the best student in the class. I say worse because that was also a way to bother Martha. I didn't intend to, but before I came, she was the best student. And now, apparently, I had not only tried to steal her boyfriend, but I was competing with her for the best average medal. As the teachers congratulated me after every exam, I could feel her envious stare on my neck. The final exams were closer, so I focused on them. I was used to studying alone and having no friends, so this was not new for me. I asked my mom if I could go back to homeschooling, but she said no. As the finals were approaching, I became more and more scared of Martha. She was relentless when she had something in her mind, and apparently, I was her new project. She said I was going to pay for what I did, but she hadn't done anything yet. I'd underestimated her all along, and now I didn't know how expensive my debt would be. The week of the final exams arrived, and I was glad I would have something on my mind other than Martha. But as I walked to school, I heard a loud noise behind me, and when I turned around, I jumped to the side just in time to avoid a black van from crushing me. The van stopped harshly. The side door opened. 2 guys dressed in black with balaclavas covering their faces grabbed me and pushed me inside. Because my dad was a diplomat, kidnapping had always been a possibility in my life. They made me take courses to keep calm and taught me strategies to escape. I even had bodyguards. But when my dad passed away and we moved back to the quiet town, the menaces were over. Or so I thought. I stayed quiet and silent inside the van, thinking about all those past years where I was frightened to leave the house because
Today
of
I'm
the
going to show you the biggest
possibility.
problem in
And
my
now,
home.
when I
Something I've
finally
been
got the
avoiding
chance
for
to put it
3
behind
years.
me,
My
it was
pantry.
happening.
Everything is
I
stacked.
couldn't
It falls
think
when I
of
taste
any
something. I
enemy
can't
my
see the
dad
back.
could
It's a
have
mess, and
that
it's
would make
time.
me go through
I
this
started by
after all
clearing
these
everything
years.
out and
They
throwing away
couldn't hurt him
anything
anymore.
expired.
As they taught me in the courses, I tried to study my kidnappers.
Then I
They
place
were
the things I
built,
eat or use
and as the
most in
van
specific
moved,
storage
they looked
containers.
more
And this is
more
where
nervous.
things got a bit out of hand.
That would be an advantage if I tried to
I labeled
escape.
each container with
We
my label
arrived at the
maker
warehouse
and added
they
the
grabbed
expiration
me
dates to the
violently.
bottom as well
Why
as the
hadn't they
cooking
covered my
time for
face?
things like
I could see
noodles.
everything.
After wiping down
I
the
wouldn't
shelves, I
have to
placed
do
in
so
storage
much math
baskets
to
and
understand
snacks.
where I was.
Here I put a
They took
layered
me
shelf
inside
and a
and tied
lazy
me to a
Susan so
chair
that
in the
all of
middle
our
of the
condiments,
warehouse.
sweeteners, and
Take
nut
your
butters
phone,
are
one
visible. I
of
did
the
the same
men
thing
said.
for my spices
Call her mother
and
and ask
herbs
for
before
$1 million.
finally placing all of my
As I heard the
containers
words,
on the
I
shelves.
frowned.
Now
We don't
everything is
have $1
visible,
million,
has a place,
I
and
said.
my nesting
The
brain
man
is
got closer to me
so
and yelled,
satisfied.
"Shut up." I closed my eyes, expecting him to hit me, but he just stood there staring at me. "Your mother will find a way to pay us," he said. I had 1,000 questions. Even though the people at the embassy told me that asking kidnappers questions only made things worse, I wanted to know why they were doing this to me, but I stood silent. They kept me there for an entire week, the longest of my life. There were at least 4 or 5 different men that came and went around. Their heads were always covered and they didn't speak much. They never hurt me either. It looked like they were waiting for something, just taking turns to guard me. I was mainly worried about my mom. They'd been calling her and threatening her every day. "If you don't want us to hurt your daughter, you better move out of town," they said. I was eager to please their demands. This town was full of psychos. Finally, after I don't know how many more days, I heard police sirens. They sounded like music to my ears. The two guys on watch stood up quickly, and before I could think of anything, they ran away. The last guy, before running away from the other two, stared at me from the distance in silence for a moment. I stared at him too, confused by his attitude. Like he was hesitating. "I'm sorry," he said, and I realized just then why he'd been the only one of them that never said a word near me. It was Janice. And I realized another thing. Martha was behind all of this. Why would she do this? After a second, the obvious answer came to my mind. The finals. Martha was keeping me away from the exams. How powerful was she that she was able to do all this? I followed Janice with my eyes as I saw him disappear, frustration taking entirely over me. After a moment, I heard my mom's voice calling me. "Over here!" I shouted. She rushed towards me, untied me, and hugged me, crying. "Are you all right? Are you hurt?" she asked. But I couldn't speak. Janice's stare on me was all I could think of. The police took us back home. As we passed in front of the school, I remembered Martha, and a wave of anger washed over me. I knew she was guilty, and all the fear I'd felt since she said I was going to pay for my actions turned into thirst for revenge. If she wanted me to leave town, and this was the way to accomplish that, she had no idea who she was dealing with. Kidnapping was a bottom-dweller move, but I was raised in fear of it, and now that it finally happened, it didn't make me weaker, but stronger. Thank you, Martha. You turned me into an iron woman, and now it's payback time. I wanted to go to school the very next day, but my mom sharply opposed. I needed rest, she said, but I was so eager to face Martha that I felt unstoppable. I couldn't sleep much that night. As I stared at the ceiling in the darkness, I heard noises in my window. I got up and saw Janice on the other side. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to shout at him and punch him in the face. But as I saw his expression filled with guilt, I simply couldn't. I let him in and went back to sit on my bed with my arms crossed. "I'm sorry," he said again. "Why?" I asked, annoyed. "Why did you do it?" "Martha's father has my entire family threatened," he confessed. "What?" I asked. I was shocked. "What happened?" "I don't know," he said. "Something about a business going wrong. Her father set up mine." Now I know where Martha gets the jeans from, I said, surprised.
She forces me to be her boyfriend. She's been doing it for years,
Janice said. How can you stand it? I asked.
We will lose everything if Martha's dad talks.
But I don't understand, I said. You have more money in your library than the president.
What?
Janice asked. The books, I shouted.
What books?
He asked, confused.